I'm really hoping that the sound quality is going to work on this. I'm in my gym. I shut down the fan, so hopefully that doesn't cause any negative reaction for you. But I'm wondering, have you ever been on the treadmill and suddenly, like, clarity or holy crap, that's the problem, or whatever the case may be, like that, you've cleared your mind because you're working out and then suddenly, wow, I get it now. So that just happened to me. We got to discuss the word Indigenous. Now, I've made it clear in other videos why I have problems with that word, but this is a different problem with that word. We need to talk about it. Bonjour, Mishko Pognon, Queen Edition of Cosmung Dodam. Like I said, this is not my usual, I'm definitely not in my office, I'm actually in my home gym. Just finished working, oh, you can't see the treadmill. Do not look in my assistant's office. The cat's got in there. That is not the subject of this video. Focus, Andy, focus. We're talking about the word Indigenous. Now, I have made it clear in the past that I have an issue with that word because it leads non-Indigenous people to believe we're all the same. And that could not be further from the truth. The practices and cultural teachings and ceremonies that I practice as Anishinaabe are totally, completely different from Haudenosaunee or Mi'kmaq, Coast Salish, whatever. Across the country, the things change, and that's why that word is so problematic. One of the reasons. But this morning on the treadmill, I realized I do not share with you an Indigenous perspective. I share one of the Indigenous perspectives. Now, backtrack, some context here. Under the Indian Act, or as defined by the federal government, Indigenous is made up of three very distinct groups. First Nations, which I belong to, Seine River First Nation, Treaty 3 territory. The Metis people, another very distinct culture. I never speak about Metis people or from a Metis perspective, because that is not my culture. I'm not crossing that line. I'm not the person you should go to for that information. Neither, probably not the right word, I don't speak for the Inuit of North Canada. You will not ever see me making an Inukshuk along the highway. Cultural appropriation much? If you don't know what it means, and it is definitely not a, I was here. That is such a colonial perspective. Travel marker, so you don't get lost in a wicked storm? Absolutely. But not some ego trip. Let's leave that to the colonists and the settler descendants. This morning, though, I was thinking about this. The fact that I speak from a First Nations perspective, one of many First Nation perspectives. There is no one thought process any more than there's one non-Indigenous thought process or one Canadian thought process. But recently, you may or may not have seen this in your news. Talked about that yesterday, how you may not be getting all of the news. Métis and First Nation have really been at odds with each other. Most recently, Métis has negotiated with the federal government to lay claim on their traditional lands. This is where I peeve off all the Métis people, by the way. If you're Métis, I get that this is not your perspective. I am not Métis. And I understand why First Nations have a perspective with that, because Métis do not have traditional lands. They may have lands where their settlements existed, but those were traditional First Nation lands. They Métis were there because half of a Métis family is First Nation. Do you see the problem? Métis cannot be crossing the line into First Nation either. And I see Métis dancing at powwow, and I see their beautiful sashes, and that's amazing. But powwow is not your cultural tradition. Rendezvous is. There's so many beautiful, I see so many Métis people that know, I can't think of the dance step. Stepping comes to mind. The fiddle music that is absolutely phenomenal. Like, if there's one thing I preach across the board, it is be proud of your culture, but do not assimilate another's. For me to pretend I am Métis or know anything about their culture would be disingenuous and disrespectful. To pretend I know anything about Inuit culture except like second, third hand, disrespectful and dishonest. Métis trying to appropriate First Nation culture is the same thing. Métis is a beautiful combination of a culture that grew, and you see the French influence, and it's amazing. They are not First Nations. And even though the federal government has all lumped us together as Indigenous, we got to know where the lines are. And we need to respect each other. Doing the land grab, I'm sorry, that sounds more settler descendant than anything else. Stewardship, not ownership. So honoring your First Nations roots doesn't mean laying claim. It's fighting alongside each other. And I will fight to defend Métis rights and the right to exist. Do not come at First Nation, because then I will equally stand with my First Nation brothers and sisters. I defend your right to be, not when you're trying to overpower my right to be, right? Stay on your side of the feather, we'll stay on ours. We can respect each other. Is it a week of rants? I don't know. It's only Tuesday. I guess time will tell. Guess it's what else I think about or what else I watch. Who knows? Who knows? I'd love to know your thoughts. I fully expect, I do not want to see some kind of Métis rant on my page. If you want to tag me to your YouTube channel or bring my attention to your video on this, absolutely go right ahead. If there's I would love to know if there's Métis influencers on YouTube that have their channel to celebrate their culture. I would absolutely love to know that. Yeah, don't take over First Nation space. My YouTube channel is First Nation space. I am Indigenous. First Nation Indigenous. Now, for the non-Indigenous watching this, might have just confused the daylights out of you. But you know what? Respect is one of our sacred teachings. I know where my lines are. I can be strong and proud and confident in who I am without taking up space that's going to lessen who you are. All I ask in return is that you do the same. Let's meet in the middle of the feather and try to turn it all into one side or the other. That's what the settlers did. We don't need to be replicating that. Okay, I am only 1/3 done my workout. I'm going to go back. I do not think I'm going to be doing another video on this, but who knows? Or I mean, during this workout. I think the next video should be from my office, where you're not looking like I have a fan coming out of my head. That's kind of cool. That's worse. Welcome to my world. Until tomorrow, I love you. I hope that clarified things. There are some firm lines we got to draw. And for First Nation to draw firm lines, who should be surprised at that? No one. Look at Canadian history. Until tomorrow, I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.